So new research is showing that personality may be substantially more important when it comes to retention and attrition than previously thought. Okay? And in fact, it seems to be moderated by the role of job performance. So now one of the criticisms people have of particularly individual personality traits in a selection context is they show relatively low predictions with job performance. There are lots of individual personality traits. The specific traits themselves is often contextual, and the magnitude correlations often isn't super high. You need to use lots of them to get a meaningful prediction. Now, that may be true, but that isn't a reason not to use them in selection, because it seems that attrition and retention is actually more important when it comes to personality than it is for performance. And there's an interplay. So for example, what this research showed is not only our personality traits, particularly the trait of emotional stability or neuroticism, okay, that seems to be particularly useful as an indicator of retention and attrition, but it's modulated by actual job performance. So what they found was when looking at the highest performers in an organization, people who are one standard deviation above the mean on emotional stability versus people who are standard deviation below the mean, okay, the neurotic high performers were 8 times more likely to leave than the high performers, emotionally stable. Both the same level of performance, differing only on this one personality trait. 8 times more likely to leave. And that kind of makes sense when you think about it. In that if someone is particularly neurotic and they're high performing, they're probably more likely to burn out. They're probably more likely to get stressed. They're probably less likely to be able to cope with the performance demands they've placed upon themselves. And they're more likely to leave. That's huge, because these are the people you want to keep, your highest performers. If they are 8 times more likely to leave on the basis of a single personality trait, that tells you everything you need to know about the importance of behavioural fit in organisations, in roles, okay? If you were to work in other personality traits, that prediction would be even stronger. So personality is a useful indicator of performance for sure, but it's a much more useful indicator of retention and attrition and engagement and all of those factors, which are equally important. Because if you have a high performer that stays for 1 week, that was a bad hire. Doesn't matter how good they are if they are not going to stay. You need to think about things in terms of like an total employee lifetime value, okay? How well they perform over how long they stay. Either of those are low, then you have a bad hire. A high performer that leaves or a low performer that stays, this is the same result fundamentally. You want both, and one way you can get both is using behavioural assessments.